breakfast? Class.
I didn't get a chance to.
I'm
so busy.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. We'll begin with a chapter of Tehillim for our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael, and especially for the hostages and the soldiers and all of their families and all of the wounded and all of the bereaved families and all of our people. Since today is Yud Aleph, so we'll do the first kapitel from those who say Tehillim every day. Today is Samach, kapitel 60, chapter 60, Samach. Lam natseach al Shushan Edus michtam leDavid lelamed. Batzoises Aram Naharayim veSaram Tzoiva vayoshav Yoav vayaches Edom begei Melach. Shneim Asar Aleph, Elohim Znachtanu Fratztanu, Anavta Tesheviv Lanu, Hirashta Eret Psamta, Refash Vareha Chimata, Hirisa Amcha Kasha, Hishkisanu Yayin Tarela, Nasata Lireyecha Neis Lis Noises, Mipnei Kahishet Sela, Laman Yecholzen Yudidecha, Hishia Yemin Chavaneni, Elohim Diber Bekatsha, Eloiza, Achal Koshchem, Ve'emek Sukais Hamaded, Li Gilad v'li Menashe v'Ephraim ma'iz Roshi Yehuda mechoykeki Moyav sirachzi al Edom ashlich nali alai pleshes Yisroi oyi Miyoi vileni ir matzar minachani ad Edom halai ata Elohim znachtanu v'lei seitzi Elohim b'tziveseinu havalanu ezras mitzar v'shav chuas adam be'Elohim nasa chayil v'hu Yavus Tzarenu, and we'll do the next one also, which is Samach Aleph, 61. Lam Natseach al Neginas LeDavid, Shima Elohim Rinasi Hakshiva Tfilasi, Miktzei Haaretz Elecha Ekra Ba'atoif Libi, B'tzur Yarum Mimeni Sancheni, Ki Ayisa Machsali, Migdal Oiz Mipnei Oyev Agur Chaval Chaylamim, Echase V'Seiser Knafecha Sela, Ki ata lehim shamata l'nidaroi, nasata Yerushas yirei shmecha, yamim al yemei melech toisif shnoisav, k'may dar vadar, yeshiv oilam lefnei alehim, chesed ve'emes man yinseruhu, kein azam rashim chala'ad, l'shal minadar ayoim yoim. Okay, first of all, welcome everybody, a freilich Purim to everybody, a happy Adar to everybody, and as was announced, Mrs. Klan announced Be'ezer Hashem in a few weeks, we'll be moving locations to 84 Viola Road. What's nice about it is, it'll be more private, won't bump into so many people, also a private parking lot. It'll just be a lot of pluses, and I'm very thankful to Mrs. Klein, and to Laser Shiner and Heather Shiner and the entire leadership of the shul for arranging that place, which will be ready for us, Be'ezer Hashem, in a few weeks. We'll announce, of course, the week before. Next week we're on as regular as well, but we're still here next week, so it's just going to be in a few weeks. I just wanted to give notice to everybody. Today's class is dedicated by Cynthia and the Fernandez family in memory of their beloved mother and grandmother, Dalma. May she remain a source of blessing, true kindness, and peace for all those who love her and for all of our people. And thank you very, very much to Cynthia and the entire Fernandez family, and Tehei Nishmas Tzura B'Tzar HaChayim. May she indeed remain a source of inspiration and light and love to all of you and the entire family and all of her friends and all the community and all of our people. And thank you very, very much. Today's class is also dedicated by a very honorable member who comes to many of the classes, and that is Shendel Silberstein, in honor of her daughter's engagement, the shidduch of her daughter Freda and her chassan Binyamin Chaim. She told me she's watching virtually, so Mazel Tov virtually on behalf of everybody here. And may you always have only nachas from the Kala and from all of your children, la'arichis yamim v'shanim tovos, in good health, happiness, prosperity, and the wedding and everything, the shidduch and the wedding, and the main thing, the life afterwards, should be b'shah tova mutzlachas, only with bracha and simcha to you and the whole family, b'toich klal Yisrael. Amen. Mazel tov, and thank you very, very much for your partnership. I also want to make another mention, and that is, for many years, we have the honor of having Mrs. Friedman here, and I want to dedicate this class to her son, who was taken on Yud Beis Kislev, right? Yud Beis Kislev, the 12th day of Kislev. Was a plane crash, and Yankele Friedman, whom I also had the privilege of knowing personally, Yaakov Shlomo Yisrael ben Reb Shmuel Binyamin Ze'ev Zechrono Livracha. Actually, I think one of the first times I met him, I was taking a group of people to a trip in the Ukraine. We went to Mezhebuz and Barditchev, so you don't usually meet people from Brooklyn or from Monsey or from Lakewood in Ukraine. But he walks on the bus and he joined our trip in Middle. And since then we have had a very warm relationship. And he was a very, very special young man, extremely kind and gracious and sweet. And his life cut short, but his soul and presence and love will remain not only with his family, but all those who knew him and all of us for eternity. And I want to just express here also in person my deepest condolences to his mother and father and siblings, and to all of his friends, and of course all the family. His mother comes to the classes for many years. Her mother came for many years until she decided to get a job. And that's what you do when you get younger. And Yankele's great-grandmother, who was an Auschwitz survivor, also used to come to the class. For those of you who remember in the tent, I remember it was once a snowy, you remember that day? It was snowing, it was ice, I barely could walk, and she marched in. She said, "I'm not going to miss this." I told her, I guess you've been through harder things than marching through the snow. So it's an honor to have you, and we all participate in this terrible loss, and just you're in our thoughts and prayers. But I also want to wish a big mazel tov for your daughter's wedding just 2 weeks ago. And may you have only, it should be only revealed joy in the family, la'arichis yamim v'shanim tovos, with much health, happiness, and prosperity. And may Yankele's soul continue to shower down blessings from heaven on all of you and all of us. Amen. And we should be zoichet to, as the Navi says, Kitzu v'ranenu sheichne yafar, one of our principles of faith of Tchiyas HaMesim b'karev b'yameinu mamash. Amen. Yeah. Okay, I see the print came out this week. A little difficult to read, but fine. we'll work with what is. Since, of course, Purim is coming in a few days, Friday, we're going to discuss a very powerful and central theme in the Megillah and in the holiday of Purim. Last week, for those who were here or those who heard it, we discussed the story of Vashti. Vashti and her relationship, her marriage with Achashverosh. And the reason that the entire first chapter of the Megillah really focuses on the party that Achashverosh made and on Vashti's behavior during that party. We spoke about it more from a literal perspective, historical or literal perspective, and the point was that it seems strange that the whole first chapter of the Megillah is all focusing on something that doesn't seem so relevant to the story of Purim. You could have just started and tell us that Vashti was killed and Achashverosh needed a new queen and he chose Esther. But obviously that story is an essential part of understanding the whole story of Purim. And on a literal level, what was really happening was that Achashverosh felt very, very insecure about his royalty. Vashti was his ticket to royalty because she was a great-granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Achashverosh had what you might call today the imposter syndrome. And this is what we discussed at length. Vashti disobeying him and Vashti being stubborn and Vashti actually insulting him and telling him, remember who's boss in this house, not only infuriated him, but it triggered his deepest wound, and he eliminates her. And the rest of his royalty and aristocracy is characterized by this insecurity, which is how Haman comes to power. And it becomes the brilliance of Esther, who uses her husband's insecurity against him and uses Haman's ego against him. The genius of Esther understanding that Haman's ego knew no bounds and Achashverosh's childhood wounds knew no bounds and nobody dealt with it. So she used Achashverosh's insecurity against him, Haman's ego against him, and nobody realizing what was happening, she created this web where ultimately she saves her people from absolute catastrophe and disaster. So the whole story of Vashti and Achashverosh in the beginning of the Megillah it's not just an isolated story about, Vashti who didn't want to listen to him and insulted him and he went crazy and he killed her and then he regretted her, but it rather depicts the picture of who this king was, what he was dealing with, which is how Haman managed to get so much power. This is a very brief summation of what we discussed. Today, we're going to go a step deeper into the story, meaning every story exists on many different levels in Torah and in Tanakh. So you have a story on a physical level, you have the same story on the spiritual level. In fact, there's a sefer called Mechir Yayin, the price of wine. It was written by the Ramah. Ramah was Rabbeinu Moshe Isserlich, the rabbi of Krakow, who actually wrote the Shulchan Aruch. He wrote all the footnotes on the Shulchan Aruch that are studied till today, incorporating all of the Ashkenazi customs and traditions. So he's considered one of the greatest halachic authorities in history. He's known as the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlich. He lived in the 16th century, passed away on Lag BaOmer. And the Ramah has a sefer, Mechir Yayin, the price of wine, where he basically sees the whole Megillah as a metaphor for life. It's fascinating. He literally starts from the beginning. Achashverosh, Vashti, the party, it's all a metaphor of life, and it depicts a person maturing from birth, literally growing up until they reach their spiritual and physical zenith. So it's just an example how he saw the Megillah not just as a physical, concrete story put in history, but also as a metaphor. And the same is true with all stories in Torah and Tanakh, that they exist on many different levels. There's Pshat, there's Remez, Drush, Sod. In fact, the Arizal says that every pasuk, every verse has 600,000 interpretations. In Pshat, Remez, Drush, Sod. So it's pretty inexhaustible. So today we want to go a step deeper into the whole story of Vashti and the contrast of Vashti to Esther. We're going to begin, it's going to be a strange source, like how does this fall into Purim? But you'll see everything will come together with God's grace. We're going to begin with a Mishnah, your first source. Again, I'm sorry the letters didn't come out good, I don't know why. I guess the one who printed it didn't realize. But hopefully you'll be able to see. I'll read it so. This is a Mishnah in Tractate Kalim, Perik Yud Zayin Mishnah Dalet. Now let me just give a little intro. The Mishnayos is basically the first text that wrote down the basics of the oral tradition of Yiddishkeit, halacha. One of the big sections of halacha is known as tumah and tara, purity and impurity. Now, purity and impurity, for the most part, is not so practically relevant nowadays. In some cases it is. Of course, you have the concept of nida and mikveh and all that. But the way tumah and tara was practiced and lived in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, that we don't have today. Which means purity and impurity was so essential, it was so part of the fabric of all of the Jewish people, men, women, and children, that Jewish life revolved around it. Just like today, Jewish life revolves around Shabbos and Yom Tov and davening and learning, etc. These things are like part of Jewish culture and life day to day. Purity and impurity for men, women, and children was an essential part of Jewish life. And the reason was because there was a Beis HaMikdash. To go into the Beis HaMikdash, you had to be pure. The Kohanim would eat sacred food like truma, challah. Today we burn the challah, but then they would eat it, and it had to be pure. All these foods were holy. People would eat karbanos. Let's say Pesach. Everybody would go to Yerushalayim, eat a carbon. You had to be pure when you eat it. The food had to be pure. So therefore, tumah and tara, purity and impurity, was an essential part of Jewish life. So for example, if chas v'shalom somebody died in a house, everything in the house under the same roof became impure. That was a very serious reality that had to be dealt with. Some things could be put into the mikveh, some things couldn't be put into the mikveh. It needed the sprinkling of the red heifer. And so tumah and tara, purity and impurity, was an essential part of Jewish life. And what becomes pure, what doesn't become? Not everything can become impure, but food can become impure, drinks can become impure, vessels, even beds, mattresses, clothes. Depends. You have to know what fabric it is. There's a lot of details. Now, at the surface, it seems a little strange because it's not even something you could see with your eyes. You know, what's the difference if the vessel is pure or impure, if the food is pure or impure? You wouldn't even see it with your eyes. But a sensitive soul knows the difference. Things that are pure have a certain energy. Things that are impure have a certain energy. And that's why it was so part of Jewish life, because whenever somebody is sensitive, even things that are invisible have a very, very deep impact. Today we don't have to explain it, because in science we know that things that are invisible are usually much more powerful than things that are visible. For example, when you split an atom, there's a lot of power there, and nobody sees atoms. Germs, viruses, bacteria, infections, these are all things that for thousands of years they didn't know about it because they're not visible with the naked eye. It's only X-rays and MRIs, etc., that show us what's happening inside. So nobody's going to say an infection doesn't exist because I don't see it, bacteria doesn't exist because I don't see it, fungi doesn't exist because I don't see it, germs don't exist because I don't see it, viruses don't exist because I don't see it. Of course they exist, you just have to know how to detect things with different instruments of reality. The same is true with purity and impurity. It's a very serious reality, but it's on a deeper level. One of the tractates that deals with purity and impurity is called Kalim, Vessels. It's 30 chapters, and it deals with all different types of vessels that can become pure or not become pure. Here, there's a very interesting Mishnah, and the commentators struggle with it because it seems out of context. It's just like a piece of little history, or like Jewish trivia. I'll read it inside. You also have it in the English as well. Yesh bameh, he goes through the 6 days of creation. Yesh bameh shenivra b'yom harishon tumah. There are things that were created on the first day that are susceptible to impurity. B'sheni, but anything created on the second day, ein by tumah, is not susceptible to impurity. B'shlishi, if it was created on the third day, yesh by tumah, there are things that are susceptible to impurity. B'revi, on Wednesday, the fourth day, ubachamishi, and on Thursday, ein by tumah, ein bem tumah. There was nothing created that is susceptible to impurity. Chutz, besides two things: knafa ois, the wing of a vulture, uveitzas namis hametzupa, and the egg of an ostrich that is plated. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, no, manishtana knafa ois mikala knafayim. Don't get dramatic. Wings of vultures are not different than any other wings. V'chol shenivra b'yom hashishi tameh. Anything created on the sixth day is susceptible to impurity. Now, what is going on here? Suddenly we're learning about Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So he says, it alternates back and forth. What was created on Sunday is susceptible to impurity, at least some things. Monday, no. Monday is pure. Tuesday, susceptible to impurity. Wednesday, no impurity, pure. Thursday, almost no impurity besides the wing of a vulture and the egg of an ostrich. Friday, anything created on Friday is susceptible to impurity. So Sunday, yes. Monday, no. Tuesday, yes. Wednesday, no. Thursday is in limbo. Friday, yes. First of all, what's the point of this? First of all, what does it mean? Let's discuss what it means. What it means is, the way the commentators will discuss the commentary of the Bartanura, Rabbi Ovadia of Bartanura, who explains as follows. What was created on Sunday? On Sunday we say, in the beginning Hashem created heaven and earth. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ves haaretz. Heaven and earth is created on Sunday. What was created on Monday? Yehi Rakia. You remember Bereshis? On Monday he created the firmament that separates the higher water from the lower water. So heaven is created on Monday. What's created on Tuesday? All produce, all plants, flowers, shrubs, trees, legumes, all the world of the world of botany is created on Tuesday. What about Wednesday? The sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. What about Thursday? Thursday you have the birds and the fish. What about Friday? Friday you have all of the mammals, all of the animals, beasts, mammals, animals, insects, and the human being, Adam and Chava. Shabbos is a day of rest. So now we'll understand the Mishnah. If you look at what was created on Sunday, from earth you can make earthenware vessels. Earthenware vessels were the most common vessels that were made. They're still made in a lot of places. Earthenware vessels is made from earth. You take earth, you mix it with water, you put in some straw, you have a potter that molds it. You ever made pottery? Earthenware vessels, it's called clay cheres. You bake it in an oven or in the sun if it's a hot day, and you have a beautiful earthenware vessel. That is susceptible to tumah. In fact, that's a very classic vessel that easily becomes impure, and it penetrates so deeply because it's porous that a mikveh doesn't even help. You have to dissolve it, you have to break it apart. It's earth, you can break it apart and then put it together. So that's Sunday. So or v'choshech, but also it says Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz, heaven and earth, and also water also. The first day we have water, right? It says v'ruach Elokim rachefes al pnei hamayim, and water, like a cup of water, like any liquid, is also susceptible to impurity.
So more than one thing was created.
Yeah. Because it says there was already water. Yeah. Now we look at Monday. Monday is heaven. Heaven is not susceptible to impurity, and you can't make vessels out of heaven. Okay, so that's Monday. So Monday is pure. What about Tuesday? Tuesday, all the trees are created. You could make vessels out of trees. It's called clay eitz, wooden vessels. Wooden vessels are susceptible to impurity, and they're all made from trees. So that's Tuesday. What about Wednesday? Wednesday, you have the sun, the moon, the stars. I never heard anybody making a vessel from the sun, or from the moon, or from the stars, or from any other planet, so it's not susceptible to impurity. We'll skip Thursday for a moment. What about Friday? Friday, you have mammals, you have animals, you have people. So if you take an animal, you make what's called clay etzem, vessels out of bones. This was a very common vessel. They took bone and made out of a vessel. It's makabel tumah. It's susceptible to tumah. So Friday is also susceptible to impurity. Also, a person could become impure. And any dead animal, if it's not kosher and not shechted, it's called a nevela, it gives tumah. Certain dead insects could give tumah. So that's why Friday is a day that's susceptible. Things that were created on Friday are susceptible to impurity. Shabbos, of course, not. Nothing was created on Shabbos. What about Thursday? Thursday is interesting. Fish and birds, even when they die, they don't give out impurity. They're not like dead mammals that die, which are called nevela. A dead fish doesn't give tumah, and a dead bird doesn't give tumah if you touch it or carry it. So Thursday is a day that's like Wednesday, it's pure. But there is an exception. And that is, you see, even if a person makes a vessel, people sometimes made vessels from birds or from fish, like from the skin, but it's not susceptible to tumah, it remains pure. Only if you make a vessel from a mammal, what's called clay etzem, from the bone of an animal, which they use till today.
What is a whale?
Huh?
What is a whale?
A whale? It's in the sea. A whale is Thursday. Is Thursday, so it's not Makabel Tumah. So since it's in the water, so it's in this case it's like in this area, even though it has similarities to mammals, but in this area it's considered a fish. So fish and birds, if you make vessels out of them, they're not susceptible to impurity. Mammals, if you make a vessel out of the bone of a mammal or the skin, leather, all of leather clothes, leather coats, leather garments, they would make leather jars, leather bars. It was very good to hold things in. These are all made from the hide of an animal, or there's vessels made from the bones of an animal. These are all susceptible to tumah. That's all Friday. But Thursday is only fish and birds. And if you make vessels of fish and birds, they're not susceptible to tumah. But Thursday has two exceptions. The egg of an ostrich is the largest egg that we have, and it's a very powerful egg. I don't know if you ever touched it or held it. It's not like the egg of a chicken that you eat in the morning. The egg of a chicken, if you drop it a little bit, yes, you can eat a raw scrambled egg from your counter. But the egg of an ostrich is very powerful. It also weighs heavy, and therefore people would use that egg to turn it into a keli, turn it into a vessel. The egg of an ostrich. Also a vulture, the wings of a vulture are very strong, so they would use that also to turn it into a vessel. So because of that, even though usually birds and fish are not susceptible to impurity, if they die, they don't give off impurity, and if you make vessels from them, the rabbis knew that people in their house had metal vessels, golden vessels, silver vessels, tin vessels, copper vessels, right, leather vessels, which are all susceptible to impurity. They may have the ostrich's egg also as a vessel, especially if they plated it so it should look nice, so people could get confused. And if you say, oh, this is not impure, this is impure, people say, what's the difference? So that's why they made a decree that when you make a vessel from the egg of an ostrich, it's susceptible to impurity rabbinically. Biblically, it's not, because it's from a bird. The same is true if you make a vessel from the bird of a vulture. Biblically, it's not susceptible to impurity. So, for example, even if a dead weasel or a dead mouse falls into it, which usually is a source of impurity, it would not become impure. But the rabbi said, because people would make in their homes vessels from these things, and it could get confused with other vessels, they didn't want to make a distinction. So to keep it simple, they said these vessels are also susceptible to impurity. So that's why Thursday is somewhat of a limbo place. Okay? So for those of you who did not shut down yet, first of all, it's good for you to have an experience what your sons do for 15 years in yeshiva, not for 45 minutes, okay? For 10 hours a day. So a little empathy when they come home in a bad mood. It's good for mommies to have empathy. So I'm not giving you the 15-hour experience. I'm not giving it to you. I just gave you a 6-minute experience, and some of you are already shut down. So it's just very interesting, okay? It was all planned. I'm just joking, but I'm not completely joking. So what's the summation of this? The Mishnah is telling us, look at the days of creation. Sunday, you will find things that were created that are susceptible to tumah, impurity. Monday, garnished. Tuesday, yes. Because again, all the plants, all the shrubs, all the trees. Wednesday, garnished. Friday, yes. Mammals, people, insects. Thursday, biblically, no. Just like Wednesday, pure. But rabbinically, there's two things created Wednesday: the ostrich and the vulture that can become impure. Again, if we fashion them into vessels, in the case of the vulture, we take the wing of the vulture. We have some vultures here sometimes, if you notice. On my block for a while, there were vultures visiting very often. They're very powerful wings, and they're aggressive birds, and their vessels are strong. And the ostrich as well. That is where Thursday, the rabbi said, two things could be makabel tumah. Now the question is, what was the point of this Mishnah? It's certainly interesting, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but so what? Like, what is there halacha here? Is there a law here? and commentators struggled with this. It's an interesting piece of information, but what is the relevance of it? Is there a lesson here? Are there ramifications here? It's hard to understand. So, for many generations, it was a struggle. Like, what did the Mishnah want to teach us? Is it just a sign to remember? Like the Mishnah Acharayna says, is there maybe something else? One of the great Hasidic masters was known as the Yid HaKadosh, which literally means the Holy Jew. His name was Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak Rabinowitz. He passed away, Tavkuf Ayin Daled, that would be 1813. And he was from the city called Pshischa in Poland. It's around 100 kilometers, like 50 or 60 miles from Warsaw. And he has two very famous students, the Kotzker Rebbe and Rebbe Simcha Binim of Pshischa. So he was one of the great luminaries of Polish Jewry in the 18th century and the first years of the 19th century. He has a fascinating interpretation here. And he says this is not just an abstract Mishnah talking about Sunday, Monday, Tuesday that doesn't seem relevant. It actually has very profound ramifications. Because we know that our calendar is orchestrated very, very carefully. There's certain days when certain holidays will fall out and certain days they will never fall out. Rosh Hashanah will never be on a Sunday, will never be on a Wednesday, will never be on a Friday. And there's a reason for it. There's astronomical reasons for it and there were practical reasons for it. Yom Kippur will only be certain days of the week and won't be other days of the week. For example, you will never have Yom Kippur on a Sunday. You won't have Yom Kippur on Sunday. You will have Yom Kippur on a Monday. You'll never have Yom Kippur on Tuesday. You will have Yom Kippur on Wednesday. You will have Yom Kippur on Shabbos. The sign for this is Loi Agu Kippur. Agu is Aleph Gimel Vav, or Ego. Ago. Aleph Gimel Vav. Loi Agu Kippur. Yom Kippur will never be Aleph Gimel Vav. You will never have Yom Kippur on a Sunday, never on a Tuesday, never on a Friday. You will have Yom Kippur on a Monday, you'll have Yom Kippur on a Wednesday, you'll have Yom Kippur on Thursday and Shabbos, never Sunday, Tuesday, Friday. Purim is the opposite. Purim is Loi Zeved Purim. You'll never have Purim on Zion, Beis Dalet. You'll never have Purim on Shabbos. You'll never have Purim on Monday. You'll never have Purim on Wednesday. You will have Purim on Sunday. You will have Purim on Tuesday. You will have Purim on Friday. Exciting Purim. Now it's interesting, in Yerushalayim, in such a year, they have what's called Purim Mishulish, which is a triple Purim. It goes Friday, Shabbos, Sunday. And because of that, they do different things each day. It's very interesting. Like on Friday, they're going to read the Megillah. Usually they have Purim on the Tesvav, on the 15th day, but it's Shabbos. So they'll read the Megillah and do Matanos Lav Yoinim on Friday. Shabbos, they do Al Nisim, they read Vayavay Amalek. Sunday, they have the meal and they give Shalach Manas. That's Tainus Esther. That's Thursday. Yeah, that's... So it's Yerushalayim, it extends, but still, Purim, Yud Dalet Adar, cannot be ever on Shabbos. So the days that Yom Kippur can be, Purim can't be. The days that Purim could be, Yom Kippur could never be. So let's see again. Yom Kippur will never be Sunday, will never be Tuesday, will never be Friday. It can be the other days. Yom Kippur could be Monday, Yom Kippur could be Wednesday, Yom Kippur could be Shabbos. We have Yom Kippur on Shabbos. Purim will never be on those days. You'll never have a Purim on a Monday when Yom Kippur is. You'll never have a Purim on a Wednesday when Yom Kippur is. You'll never have Purim on Shabbos. When will you have Purim? You'll have Purim on a Sunday. You'll have Purim on a Tuesday. You'll have Purim on a Friday. Why? In fact, it says in Zohar that Purim was named because of Yom HaKippurim. Yom HaKippurim is the day like Purim. Yom HaKippurim. So Purim, even though the Megillah says Purim was named Purim al Shem HaPur Hu Agoyro, because Haman threw lots, but let's remember Yom Kippur, they also threw lots. Huh? Thursday, I'm going to ask you to wait for a few minutes. But you don't have a chair. So we have to get you a chair. Come here. There's 3 chairs here, if you want. So Yom HaKippurim is Kippurim, because Purim, of course, came after Yom Kippur, but Purim is named, this is what it says in Zohar, it's connected to Yom HaKippurim. Now, it's very strange, because if you would ask me which are the two most opposite days in the Jewish calendar, I would say Purim and Yom Kippur. They have no similarities. Yom Kippur is a somber day, it's a serious day, there's no eating, there's no drinking, there's fasting. Purim, I don't have to describe to you what Purim is like. The nightmare of many a Jewish woman and many a Jewish mother, especially if you have teenagers who decide they're allowed to smoke and drink ad infinitum. So, I don't mean to remind anybody, but the challenge is, how does Yom Kippur and Purim come together? Not only that, it says in Sfarim that Yom HaKippurim is really Yom HaKippurim. So Yom Kippur is like Purim. That means Purim in many ways is even higher than Yom Kippur. You're comparing Yom Kippur, it's Ki, Yom HaKippurim, which means like Purim. And here in the calendar we see their exact opposite. The days that Purim will fall out, Yom Kippur can't. The days that Yom Kippur could fall out, Purim can't. Ooh, says the Yida Kodesh. Now you'll understand the Mishnah. On Sunday, things were created that are susceptible to Tumah. Monday, not. Tuesday, yeah. Wednesday, not. Friday, yeah. Shabbos, not. He says that's the Mishnah is describing Yom Kippur versus Purim. Purim can be on a Sunday when you had the creation of things that could become impure. Yom Kippur can't be on a Sunday, but it could be on a Monday when there's no impurity, but Purim can't be on a Monday. Tuesday, it reverses. Yes, Purim, no Yom Kippur. It's a day of impurity. Wednesday, yes, Yom Kippur, no Purim. It's no impurity. It's the sun, the moon, the stars. If you'll notice, Monday and Wednesday, heavenly things are created. Sunday and Tuesday, earthy things are also created. Friday, Yom Kippur will not be on a Friday. Purim will be on a Friday like this year. And that's a day of impurity. Shabbos is a day of purity. Shabbos Kodesh. Nothing was created. Yom Kippur could be on Shabbos. Purim can't be on Shabbos. So that's so interesting. Purim will only be on a day when things were created that can become impure. Yom Kippur will never be on such a day. Now, in parentheses, we're going to get back to this. We have Thursday. Thursday, we're going to, as I told you, we're going to wait a few minutes. We're going to get to Thursday in a moment. But now we're dealing with the other days. So the Yida Kodesh says this is what really the Mishnah is saying. And Rabbi Nachum Zember writes, he was one of the great rabbis of Poland. He was killed in the Warsaw Ghetto in Pesach 1943. And he writes that the Mishnah is actually telling us a halacha, that because of this, when you make the calendar, you have to make sure that Purim doesn't fall out on certain days and Yom Kippur doesn't fall out on the other days. Purim has to be on days that are Makabel Tumah and Yom Kippur on days that are not Makabel Tumah. Yom Kippur Cotton is Erev Rish Chodesh, so that's, we're talking the big Yom Kippur. But what is the meaning in all of this? What is the message? What is the theme behind this? So for this, we need to go a little deeper and to understand the story of Vashti and Esther. Because this will shed light on understanding exactly how this holiday is created and why this change of the days. We all know the story. Achashverosh asks Vashti to come see him and show off her beauty in front of all the ministers and all of the people he invited to the feast. This is after partying for 187 days, drinking, and on the seventh day, the last day of the party, his heart is merry, Tov Lev HaMelech Bayayin, he's inebriated, he's intoxicated. Vashti is sitting with the women because she made her own feast, and he wants her to come, and the Megillah says Vashti was gorgeous, and he wants to show off Laharais, he wants to display, everybody should see his wife's beauty. Vatema'en hamalka Vashti lavai. She refuses to come. The Megillah doesn't explain why. Chazal say, Rashi says, because Achashverosh wanted she should come without any garments, and there was a leprosy there, so she didn't want to come. So why couldn't she just send him a message and explain to him that this will be embarrassing for him? And he shouldn't take it personal, it's actually to save his grace as much as her own grace. Again, the Megillah doesn't explain any of this. But something happens here that doesn't work, and Achashverosh is infuriated, and he has her eliminated. So that's the literal meaning of the story. And this is the entire introduction to the whole Purim story. How are we supposed to understand this on a deeper level? So there's a fascinating explanation of the Maharal of Prague on the name of Vashti. The word Vashti reminds you of which word in Hebrew? Anybody? Shtei. What does shtei mean? Two. So that's what the Maharal says. If you take a look in your source sheet, it's the fourth source from the bottom. Chadash Maharal mi Prague, Esther. Nira loimer lekachos nekras Vashti miloshin shtayim ki loy achas hoyser rak shtayim. She's called Vashti, which means two, shtei, because there was no one person, there were two people. Very interesting commentary. She wasn't one, she was made up of two. So that's her name. Vashti. She's made up of two people. What is this supposed to mean? What does it mean to be made up of two people? She's split. She's a different person one day or another day. What is this? Take a look at the source right before Ur HaMeir L'Rav HaKadosh Rabbi Zev Wolf Mishitamer Megillas Esther. There's a sefer called Ur HaMeir. It was written by it's the Torah of a man named Rabbi Zev Wolf of Zhitomir. Zhitomir is a city in Ukraine. He was a student of the Maggid of Mizrich. He was also one of the great Hasidic masters in Ukraine. He has a sefer called Ur HaMeir, which means the shining light, and he actually passed away on Purim. And he has a commentary on the Megillah, and I quote, Shamati b'shem ha-Baal Shem Tov zichroina livrocha l'chaya elam haba. I heard in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. Sha'amar, he says, Ha-melech ha-Chashveirish amar lahavi es Vashti amalka lefonav aloiva. The king asked to bring Vashti, and she didn't want to come. So you have it on a physical level, you also have it on a spiritual level. What is it on a spiritual level? Achashveirish, Chazal say, Achashveirish is a king, but Achashveirish is also a metaphor. Achashveirish is a metaphor for the ultimate king. Why would the ultimate king be called Achashveirish? So if you look in the second to your last source, I'm going to go for a second to second last source, jump there because it says there, Ma'irei Ur Mechir Yayin L'Harama. It's a sefer called Ma'irei Ur. Reb Meir Papyrus, it's a Kabbalah book, and Ramah wrote Mechir Yayin. They bring from the Medrash, Vayhi b'mei Achashveirish, mi sha'acharis v'reishis shaloi. Achashveirish is three words. Acharis, the end. Reishis, the beginning. Shaloi are his. The king, that the end and the beginning are his. In other words, Hashem. Acharis is the end of everything. Reishis is the beginning of everything. Which means from the beginning till the end, it's Shaloi. It's Achar. That's Achashveirish. That's what they say. But if you look in your last source, Megillah Daf Yud Aleph, Shmuel Amar, Shehushchuru Pneim Shel Yisrael B'Yom of Keshulei Gdeira. You know why he's called Achashveirish? Achashveirish comes from the word Shachar, black. The face of the Jewish people was blackened in his days like the bottom of your cholent pot. Keshulei Gdeira means the bottom of the pot. Doesn't say cholent, that was my addition. But when you cook something, and especially, you told your husband to shut the fire in 25 minutes. Okay, not your husband, the cleaning lady. And she forgot, and suddenly the whole pot is black, and now you have to be rubbing for a few hours, scrubbing. So the bottom of the pot is black. So he says, Achashveirish comes from this word, shacharus, blackness. Like shachar is black, because the face of the Jewish people were blackened in his days like the bottom of a pot. Interesting expression. So we have a huge contradiction. Achashveirish, the Ramah tells us, is Acharis v'reishis shaloi. It's Hashem. The end and the beginning is his. The Gemara says, no, it means actually blackness and darkness, because it was a very dark period for the Jewish people. No kidding. It was the first genocidal plan against the Jews that almost succeeded. It was obviously annulled, but the danger was intense, and it lasted almost for an entire year. Even after Haman was killed, because the decree came out, Yud Gimel Nisan, that in a year, Yud Gimel Adar, they should kill the Jewish people. So this was a very, very serious year. A whole year, people don't realize it. Purim didn't happen as long as the Megillah is read. Megillah is read in 25 minutes. Purim happened over more than a decade. It's a long story. Yeah. More than 10 years. Yeah. Achashverosh becomes a king. In the third year, he makes a party. Vashti gets killed. He's now searching for a new queen. It takes another few years. On the 7th year of his reign, Esther becomes the queen. Shevel Malchusai. Then he hires Haman. Okay. In the 12th year of his reign, Esther was already a queen for 5 years. The decree comes out. The decree comes out on Yud Gimel Nisan. Yud Gimel Nisan. It's a decree that in 11 months, Yud Gimel Adar, all Jews should be exterminated in one day. So Jews have a whole year to prepare for their death, so to speak. And every Jew is going to be killed. Esther comes into Achashverosh the next day, asks him to come to a party. At the party, she asks him to come to a second party. At the second party, she gets Haman executed, but the decree is still there. There's still a decree. It's like if Eichmann would be killed or Himmler would be killed, you still have Hitler, you still have a Holocaust. You just have the main guy who instigated it gone, but the decree was still there. Esther then convinces Achashverosh to send permission to the Jewish people that they could defend themselves. Achashverosh never cancels the first decree. People think he never canceled the first decree. He said, I can't. He just gave Jews permission to fight back. That's it. Chav Gimel Sivan, they got the second letters, and now a whole year they were waiting for war. They knew there's going to be war. It wasn't a simple year. It was like Yehudim HaSa'ira because they were gratified that they have permission to defend themselves and the government was behind them. But you were dealing with very, very serious situation. Listen to it, 75,000 Amalekim who came to kill Jews, and the Jews killed them in self-defense. Right? Somebody once told me that they can't celebrate Purim because it's too violent, because they killed 75,000 people. I said, read the Megillah. These were 75,000 terrorists, literally Hamas terrorists, who came to kill children, and the Jews killed them first. You should be grateful, and if not, you're cuckoo. You're cuckoo. You're cuckoo. You lost every sense of morality.
They still cuckoo till today.
I know that. That's why I'm saying it. That's why I'm saying it. It's the reason I'm saying it. You identify with the perpetrator much more than with the victim. You have to choose. Do you love life or do you love murder? You have to choose in life. I said the Megillah is not a barbaric story. The Jews did what every moral person did, what you would do for your children, I hope, and if not, you're an accomplice to evil. In any case, it was, why am I saying this?
Because you want to know how much time it takes.
Oh, so this was a long time. So it was a difficult period. So now let's come back. It all starts off with Achashverosh wanting Vashti to come without clothes, and she refuses to come. So the Gemara says there's a leprosy. That's one interpretation. The Baal Shem Tov takes the whole story and he turns it into a psychological and spiritual story. Let's see what he says. Back to that source. Oyer HaMeir, you see the second line. Toichen hadvarim divrei kodesh. Let me share the holy words. Ki b'chines ha-klippos ein lem b'chines metzias ba'olam. All klippos means shells, husks, blockages, don't have a real metzias, don't have a real reality in the world. Kiyim derech halbasha be'ezeh b'china. Only if they dress up in something else. They have to get dressed and camouflaged. They have to wear clothes, halbasha. That's how they can exist. V'kivan she'avar Amar HaMelech lahavi es Vashti ha'moira al klippos. Neged Esther shebegdusha. And here the King of Kings asks Vashti, who is the embodiment of Klippot, of shells, versus Esther, which is holy. He says, I want Vashti to come. So Vashti wants to come with her garments. He says, no, I want Klippot to come without its garments. She couldn't come. Without garments, there's no existence. So if there's no existence, there's nobody to come. Bilti amtzaos halbasha. Without having camouflage, being camouflaged with garments, there's nobody there. That's what we said. Klipa has no mitzias, no reality, if it's not dressed up. So when he summons Vashti to come without it, there's nobody to come. There's nobody here. Ha'inyan amuk. This is deep. V'lav kol moicha savel es dvarav hagdoshim. And not every brain will contain these holy words. So how do I have the audacity to try to explain these holy words? So the answer is, first of all, because I'm speaking to women, and bini yisera nitna be'isha, number one. And it's all about Vashti and Esther. But with God's grace, over the generations, that the Baal Shem Tov's words have been explained by his students over the generations, I think at least a little bit, we can have some access to his holy and profound words. Yeah. What is he saying? He's saying, and you all know the story, or many of you know the story, the emperor has no clothes, right? What's the story? Yes. They convinced him that there's a tailor that's going to weave such an amazing, royal, aristocratic garment for the king that it's barely visible. It's so edel, it's so fine, it's so subtle, it's so refined that you can't even see it or touch it. And this became the news of the entire kingdom, that this greatest tailor is making a garment that never existed in history. It is so fine, it is so subtle, it's so edel, it's like mamish, thin of thin. You have to have special microscopic eyes to see it. And the day that the king put on these garments was a simcha and shtetl. You know, some people dance with Achnasa Sefer Torah, and this was lahavdil, the Achnasa of this garment that was so historic that regular eyes can't see it. And the king took off his regular garments and he put on this garment and he goes out for a parade. And everybody's like, wow, 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 wow. And there was a young child. And the child takes a look and screams, "The emperor is naked!" Because children get it. He has no clothes. The emperor has no clothes. That's it. He said it as is, and this became the greatest tragedy. How can this child be educated and brainwashed in such a powerful way to say that the emperor has no clothes? It's almost like in America till a few weeks ago saying that there's men and women. Like, really? Wow. Wow. Like you need a president to get up in 2025 and like, men and women. Wow. I never knew that. Nobody ever knew that. That's what happens to a country. Right? It's like frightened. Of course not. This pronoun, that pronoun, yet a pronoun. I think Mike Walsh did a documentary, What is a Woman? So he goes to all the professors in America and they don't know what hit them. They don't know what a woman is. Too complicated. So finally he goes to a tribe in Africa and he asks them and they all start laughing what a meshugana he is. And then he asks some guy here in America. The guy says, "Get married, you'll figure it out." The Baal Shem Tov says, lahavdil, I'm just using this story, the Baal Shem Tov says, sometimes it's the opposite. The kid screamed, the child screamed, the emperor has no clothes. What if it's the other way? The clothes have no emperor. The clothes have no emperor. And if the clothes have no emperor, they just have clothes of an emperor. So when the king asks that the clothes be removed, what's left? Nothing. Nothing. That's why it doesn't even say in the Megillah Vashti was killed. On a spiritual level, it's not about her being killed. She just disappears. It's interesting. The Megillah doesn't say Achashverosh killed Vashti or anybody killed Vashti. It said she shouldn't show up anymore. Why is it said it? Why is it said in such a strange way? Because spiritually, that's the story. Boom! Vanish. Gone with the wind. Why is this? What does this mean? This is what the Maharal says, because Vashti means two. There was no one person, there were two people. What does it mean, one person? What does it mean, two people? What does the Baal Shem Tov mean? Klippot can't exist without clothes. What does that mean? Aren't clothes a good thing? They can't exist. And the moment you want it without garments, there's nothing there. Me'ayin lalavish, where could she come from? The message here is not just profound, but it's also really a guide for life. The word klipa, what does the word klipa mean? A shell, a husk, right? Klipa is like in Yiddish, it's called sholachts, a peel, a banana peel, an orange peel. You peel a banana to have access to the banana. We're very thankful a banana has a peel, because if bananas wouldn't have peels, you could leave a banana on your counter without a peel, and after a few hours, it's going to get brown. If on the tree it wouldn't have a peel, it couldn't survive. The peels of fruits are what allow it to survive through the weather, what allow them to become ripe, to develop maturity. It's like a protector. It's like a coat in the winter. It's literally a coat. So a klipa could be very, very good. It's like the skull protecting the brain. It's a very important thing. When you have such a precious thing, you need to protect it. Grain has chaff. It's called straw. It protects it. If not, the kernel would either be scorched by the sun or ruined by the rain. The chaff protects the kernel. But Everybody understands when you want to eat a banana, you peel the banana, unless you're a monkey. If you want to eat an orange, you peel the orange. And if you want to eat the kernel of a grain, you remove the chaff and you take out the kernel. So the Klippot knows its space. Oopsie. Huh? So the Klippot knows its space. It knows its role. What is its role? Its role is, I'm here to protect. The moment I'm done protecting, you want to eat the banana, discard me, throw me in the garbage, and eat the banana, enjoy it. Throw out the chaff or use it for fuel or use it for animal, whatever it is, and eat the kernel, grind the kernel, make flour, and make a delicious hamantash, covered haman that's healthy without carbs and cholesterol. Invisible, yeah. An invisible hamantash. An invisible hamantash. Very good, very good. Yeah. The one I'm eating right now. You see it? Yes. Okay. Gewaldig. I don't gain weight, I'm a chaya. That's a good klipa. That's a beautiful klipa. The skin, it's called epidermis, protects us. That's very, very important. What happens, however, when the klipa stops calling itself klipa? When the klipa says, I am the real thing. I'm not covering anything. I am a substitute. I'm the substitute for reality. Ooh, here klipa becomes dangerous. Here, it's not doing its job anymore. It's not just an accessory. It takes over. It occupies. When we talk about cosmic kedusha and klipa, in Kabbalah and Chassidus and Machshava, there's always the contrast. Kedusha, klipa. Holiness, unholiness. Why is it called klipa? The answer is because the only reality that really exists is the divine energy that saturates every single creation. That's the only emes. Every single reality is created every single moment by Hashem, and therefore the only reality that really exists is emes Hashem la'olam ein oid milvadai, is the divine energy that flows and cruises and vibrates in every heartbeat, in every breath, in every cell, atom, neuron, in every black hole, star, frog, turtle, squirrel, gazelle, every tree, shrub, plant, every droplet of rain, flake of snow, and grain of sand, is essentially a physical embodiment of the divine energy. Ba'asara ma'amares nivra ha'olam bidvar Hashem shamayim nasu. It's the word of Hashem that continuously creates and vivifies and animates every moment of existence. But we don't see that. It's called klipa. There's a shell. There's a husk. The choice a person makes, and what we come down here to the world, is to choose in which reality am I going to live. Am I going to live in the reality of klipa? Am I going to live in the reality of kedusha? To live in the reality of klipa means I get stuck in the shells and the cover-ups. That's what I start worshiping. That's what I start accepting and validating as power. And that means anything and anybody outside of Hashem. When the Baal Shem Tov was a little child, on the deathbed, he lost his parents at a very young age. He was 5 years old, and as they say, the last words his father told him before he passed away was, Yisraelik, 2 things I want to tell you. Don't fear anybody or anything in the world outside of Hashem. Love every Jew with every fiber of your being. And the father passed away. I guess with those 2 lines, he gave him more than sometimes we can get a whole life from listening to somebody. He gave him his soul and he gave him a mission. He gave him a mission. And that's how he lived. That's what he taught. That's essentially what he's teaching here as well. What does avodah zarah mean, idolatry? We translate it often as, I worship a statue, or I worship a rock, or I worship a person. But really what avodah zarah means, anytime I grant reality to klipa, rather than seeing it as a klipa that's just covering, that's a form of avodah zarah. I'm taking it away from the frequency of oneness.
Zara means strange, other, right?
Zara means strange. Anything outside of that oneness. Now, what does that mean in a person's life? In a person's life, avodah zarah is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's very, very subtle. But it means whenever I give any power to anything, outside of the true source and core of all reality, and I give that power, and that's how I'm living by, and that's what's making me stressed out and anxious. So it's a very human thing to do. But right now, I'm not in touch with my own true life force and energy. I'm living in another space. I was taken away from that space, and now I'm living in a space of brokenness, of loneliness, of separation. That's why the Baal Shem Tov says, Klippot always exists in a garment. It never shows up bare. Why not? Why do you think Klippot always has to be dressed up in something else? Why do you think? What would happen if you removed all the garments and it just shows? What would happen? Huh? Yeah, it ceases to exist. Why does it cease to exist? Because its whole power of existence is that it's a garment, it's a cover-up. So if you expose it, and Shama, there's nothing there. Yeah, let's give a simple example. Yeah, how do you know if a business or an organization is legit or it's corrupt? If it's corrupt or illegal, etc., they will not want you to open the books. Why not? Very simple, because if you start digging, you're going to find skeletons and you're going to say this whole thing is a farce. When a few years ago, somebody had a bonsai scheme. You remember? $50 billion. Deceive people. What was the power of the bonsai scheme? People invested millions of dollars and they thought they're getting a tremendous amount of returns. They were getting nothing. But everything was covered over by lies. Every lie could only exist if there's a cover. If there's no cover, if you say it as is, it's never going to survive.
That's why the Sasha Isa says, "Long that Tishal Shmi," because he has no name.
Yeah. And the same is true in so many areas of life, right? Whenever anybody needs to cover up something, why are they covering up? Because they're afraid if you reveal the truth, its powerlessness or its corruption or its evil is going to be revealed. So it's always dressed up and camouflaged. Now the question is in a person's own personal life. And that is, how many blockages do we live with? I want you to ask yourself, I'm going to ask myself, how many things in our life do we have blockages with that we're dressed up in many, many spiritual or psychological and emotional garments? And they exist in order to protect us. But sometimes instead of protecting us, what happens is they can cause us to become alienated from who we really are. So if you were to ask a person, and this is exactly what happens here, the King of Kings asks Vashti to show up. This is, the Baal Shem Tov says, is a story about life. Every person in life at some point is summoned to show up. It can happen when I'm young, if I'm lucky. It can happen when I'm a little older. It can happen much older. That depends on the circumstances of life. But there's a moment that the King of Kings, Acharis V'Reichus Shaloi, the one true reality that is the source of everything, cosmic oneness, summons Vashti. Come, I want to see you. Vashti is very good at this. What does she do? She has beautiful clothes. She's dressed up. She's about to come. Show off the beauty. He says, no, this time I need you to come with you. Just you. Nothing else. Vashti's like, no way. No way. This is what I need. To come without any blockages. And what happens? There's no Vashti left. There's no Vashti left. In a person's life, what does this mean? What does it look like to show up to life with full presence without any cover-ups? Sometimes a person has so many cover-ups, they don't even know how many klippos they have. Sometimes my klippos have developed so brilliantly over the years that I don't even know there's anything else. I'm operating from that place because I don't have anything else to operate with. These are the blockages through which I operate. What does that look like in people's lives? It can have a billion different stories and different colors. But one feature, for example, could be, yeah.
I just have to say, it keeps pounding in my head that at the end of the Second World War, when Hitler was supposed to get what he deserved, he disappeared.
Yeah.
Just like Vashti, he disappeared.
In a bunker. April 1945. Yeah.
It's interesting, like in Bereishis,
But no punishment, no earthly punishment by any court would be able to give Hitler what he deserved. You realize that? That's why we say on every Jew who was killed, Hashem Yinkom Damai. It's not just It's not just we're not looking for revenge. If you could punish a criminal, you have to punish a criminal. But it's something much deeper. It's something completely beyond the imagination of what evil can accomplish. But this is what's so important to understand about evil. Evil's reality is not real. What do I mean it's not real? It's very real. It wreaks havoc. It means its entire reality is based on a lie. And anything that's based on a lie cannot endure forever. Both of my parents grew up in the Soviet Russia, communism. So my mother describes to me, may she be well, that in their history lessons, she went to public school in Georgia, South Russia. Every few months, they had to tear out new pages from the history book because this new person became persona non grata by Stalin, so they never existed. So for 70 years, what was the power of communism? A lie. They held the world in the grip of terror, and millions of Jews supported communism. They thought Russia was a paradise. And it was all one big lie. It was a Gehenna for millions of people. It was pure purgatory. All evil in the world, all negativity in the world, its entire power is Klippot. Klippot is always covers. Stalin didn't come to say, I'm destroying the world. Hamas doesn't say we're here to burn babies alive. Iran and Hezbollah don't say, or Hitler didn't say, we're here because we're evil. No, we are the ones who are just. We're freedom fighters. We love children. That's how it always is. Because that's how Klippot lives. It lives in shadows, it lives with cover-ups. The moment you remove it, it's gone. That's why no evil lasts forever. Because its entire existence is coming from what? From reality being buried. Now let's go to our own lives. Let's not call it evil, let's call it blockages. Anything that exists in our life, that its entire power is coming only because there's blockages, is never going to be able to carry you through life, because it doesn't really have an existence. Only things that when you remove all the blockages, they're there, that's Kedusha. And that's when you could start breathing. But imagine if when I grew up, and I didn't even know this, we have a divine soul, we have an animal soul. The animal soul is a klipa for the divine soul. It's like a banana peel. It's here to protect it. It's here to make sure that I live physically. If I need to go to the bathroom, I need to go to sleep, I need to eat, I need to drink, I'm too cold, I'm too hot. That's the animal consciousness. Like an animal has a consciousness that says, now you're hungry, now you're thirsty, now you're in danger. It's very, very important to have an animal soul. If you don't have an animal soul, you can't survive. But it's a klipa, it's a shell. But what happens when it's not only a shell, it replaces my divine soul. I don't even know that anything is inside. So now my animal soul develops all of these instincts and drives and cravings, right? For example, one thing I may do is I may numb my feelings because my animal soul is frightened. Maybe it was hurt a lot as a child, so if I don't have feelings, I'm fine. Maybe it will become disassociated from life, because if I'm disassociated, I won't feel pain. Maybe it doesn't trust anybody, because as a child, maybe I couldn't trust, so now I don't trust anybody. Maybe if I'm criticized by somebody, I feel like I'm being stabbed to death, and that's why I can't deal with it. I become defensive, I shut down. Because my animal soul is frightened, because maybe criticism as a child meant you're worthless. So these are all protective mechanisms that we live with. We develop personalities around them. We think this is our personality. But really, what is it? It's a cover-up for the truth. This is all based on a cover-up of my truth. What's your truth? Your truth is that right now you're a channel of God's light in this world, which is infinite. And therefore you're full of power, you're full of love, trust, compassion, curiosity, inquisitiveness, creativity, kindness. Yeah?
Isn't sneers like covering up?
Nice question. Good question. Sneas means to cover. You're saying here that klipa doesn't exist with only in a cover. Isn't sneas cover? Beautiful question. Okay, one moment. Nichnas b'Yetzirah. Yeah. That's how you know. How do I know if I'm touching something of holiness or something of unholiness? So let's say I have a craving to something. Yeah, this is a very good litmus test. If it's a Klippot craving, and you tell the Klippot, you know what? I want to first research this which I'm craving. Give me a few days. I want to see exactly what it is. Klippot will always say, no, now. It always is impulsive. It's right now. It's urgent. Why? Because it knows that if you give it time, if you dig a little bit, you're going to see there's nothing there. So right away, its temptation is always immediate. Its reaction is right now. It's overwhelming. It's an urgency. Kedusha doesn't mind if you research it for 20 years. You could excavate. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You're going to find truth as deep as you dig. In ourselves, there's things that if I puncture the blockage, wow, there was nothing there. I was just protecting something that doesn't really have power. I thought it does, but it didn't. Kedusha means you're living with your innermost core that never has to protect itself with any cover-ups. So what does this look like in a relationship? How many cover-ups do I bring into a relationship with another person? How many blockages? Huh? Yeah, and sometimes if I know somebody for long, it may be that the blockages are just entrenched in a much more sophisticated and powerful way. Because to come without blockages is very vulnerable, because it's full presence. Full presence is vulnerable. Full presence is, I'm not wearing any vests, I'm not wearing any bulletproof vests, I'm not wearing any levushim, I'm completely open. That is extremely vulnerable. That is why I dress up. That is why we cover up. It's a way of protecting a person's self. So now, Vashti is called Vashti because Shtayim. What did the Maharal say? She is two people. What does it mean she's two people? She's two people is she does not know who she is. There's the Vashti at the core, and there's the Vashti of the Klippot. When the Vashti of the Klippot takes over, so now you're not dealing with a person. You're dealing with a shell of a person. And sometimes people could walk around their whole life, and you say there's two people. The real person is buried somewhere invisible. We don't know where they are. A woman once told me, she's a very deep and spiritual person, so she told me that her husband had a lot of trauma in her life. She also did, but she worked it through. He's in the middle of it. So she told me that sometimes in their marriage, you just put it on vibrate. So sometimes in their marriage, she's talking to him and he just shuts down. There's nobody there. It's like a shell of a person. So I asked her, so what do you do then? So she told me, she said, I speak to his neshama. I speak to his soul because there's nobody there. And I said, does his soul speak back? She says, yeah. His soul says, yeah, I also miss him. You miss him and I also miss him. So sometimes it was a very deep response. Like I said, what do you tell his soul? I tell him that I miss him so much. And the soul says, yeah, I also do. Right? So this is really where there's like this disassociation, like I'm just living behind shells and husks and I can't let anything get to me. And this is what you really talk about, a shell of a person. There's a person, they're alive, they're breathing, they may be functional, they may have even 3,000 employees or 100 employees. They may make money, they figured out how life works. But essentially, behind it all, the person is not there. It's hidden. The person has been alienated from themselves. And there's reasons we do this in life. It's usually unconscious, but then it becomes a nightmare for the person themselves. They are tortured. We could feel it whenever there is anxiety, is always a wake-up call that there's a split in me. Something is split. Something is off. Something is off base. Comes Esther. What's Esther? Interesting. What does the name Esther mean? Hiddenness, concealment. Whoa, you just attacked Vashti for being behind Klippot. And what's Esther? Esther is concealment. But what's the difference between Esther and Vashti? Vashti is called Vashti, which means two. Esther means concealment. That's her name. What does it mean that's her name? Why is that her name? Because Esther knows that there's a concealment. And that's the difference. Esther's name is concealment, not because there's no concealment. There is a concealment, but she just knows how to distinguish between that which is concealed and that which is not concealed. The moment you know that there's a Hester, that's already a whole different situation. You see, We all have blockages in our lives. There's no person who's alive that doesn't have blockages. Klippot is a part of reality. Our animal soul is Klippot, and it sometimes can get out of hand. There's a few tzaddikim that transform it completely. That's not the challenge. The real challenge is that I don't know what is Klippot and what is not Klippot. Esther knows this is concealment. She knows what's behind it. I know this is a banana peel. I know I can't eat the banana peel. What does that mean in a person's life? A person's life, it means you could really look at yourself and you say, you know what? My animal soul just took over. Yeah. I went into shutdown mode. I went into angry mode. I went into jealous mode. I went into hatred mode. I went into empty mode. I went into blah, blah, blah mode. I went into anxiety mode. I went into fear mode. I went into comparing myself to other people mode. I went into the mode of, oh my God, my family is falling apart mode. Oh my God, the world is falling apart mode. Okay, got it. Got it. So give your little boy or your little girl is throwing a tantrum. The world is falling apart. Purim is coming. We don't have shalach manas. Yankee doesn't have a costume yet. Where are we going to do the meal? OMG. And whoever called Purim a happy day. The happiest day, really the happiest day. And then you hear some shir, this person says that what you daven on Purim is going to come true. But Purim, you're so anxious. Who's davening? What's davening? The power of Klippot is anything that takes you away from presence in this moment. Realizing Achar is veracious shaloi, that's Klippot. Klippot is very sophisticated. It uses holiness. It's like Purim is coming, and you're not inspired. Oh, let's feel guilty. Guilt, great way to celebrate. Guilt helps everybody get inspired. We all know that. It just shuts everybody down. Life is about here, now. Esther knows there's concealments, but she knows it's a concealment. She doesn't worship the concealment. The awareness of what self is an animal consciousness that's hijacking my creativity, and what self is a divine consciousness that the animal soul needs to flow through. Every person in this life, right? I have moments in my life, I know I'm now in flow. There's an openness, there's a vulnerability, there's a presence, and there's always a joy. Because whenever you're in Hashem's space, there's joy and confidence. And then there's moments, I'll just eat whatever I see. I'm desperate. There's an anxiety. I'm afraid. Okay, what do you do then? What do I do then? The worst thing is just go there. Don't go that, Rabbi. Awareness. The ability to observe that and see that. To see the Hester, to see, wow, my soul is about to be hijacked. That's it. That's what you got to know. My soul is about to be hijacked. Your child says something. Your husband says something. Your wife says something. Some men will watch this. Anybody says, your mother, your sister, your brother, your shutuf, your partner, your shachem, whatever it is, your sister-in-law who never makes Sheva brachas. But then she calls you, why don't you visit your mother? Right? And a part of me gets triggered. What is it? I don't know. Maybe my insecurity, maybe history. Maybe I feel used in this family. I'm the one who helps always, and then I'm the whatever it is. And my animal soul is now I'm trying to protect myself. Jealousy is a way to protect. Hatred is a way to protect. Gossip is a way, but it's all klipa. Doesn't make anybody feel better. Because it's all living from cover-ups that don't have a real true reality. And whenever my life is not a manifestation of true reality, it plotzes. It's like a balloon that gets deflated and there's nothing there. It's like a marriage that looks good to the world, but inside is rotten. How much joy is there going to be in that marriage? It's like a couple once came to see me years ago, and they're telling me, that last night they were at a bar mitzvah, and there was a couple of the shmogas born, and they said, that couple was what we want to be like. They didn't know that couple was there earlier. My point is, I'm saying in humor, things could look good on the outside. Really? How much does that mean? But it's true in everybody's life that way. There could be things on the outside that are very, very glamorous, but that's the moment you open up, there's nothing there. And that's the klal. You have to ask yourself, when all the garments are removed, what's there? How much power is there? How much relevance is there? How much is this going to sustain you? That's where you want to spend your time. That's where you want to be. Because that's your energy, that's your life force. That's the only place to be. Esther knows this. The moment she knows this, she's in a different place. The king summons every person, and that's a gift. What does it mean to get summoned by the king? By Achris V'Reisha Shalai, what does it mean? It means that there's situations in life that challenge us to be able to go much deeper. And those are gifts. They're usually curveballs in life that challenge us to go into a much deeper place. It may be a crisis with a child. It may be a crisis with a marriage. It may be a crisis with your own mental health. It may be a challenge in your family, in yourself, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually. It may be something else that happens inside or outside. But these are curveballs that challenge my Klippos. They're like, oh, not everything is perfect. You know, people create a trajectory for life. I'm going to have a perfect marriage and perfect kids, and they're all going to give me nachas and put them on the conveyor belt. I'm going to hatch them and match them and dispatch them, and then call me for Wachnacht, and I'll pay for a little bit of the bar mitzvah. And then things are like not working out exactly that way. Really, it's the king knocking on the door of Vashti. I want to see you. I want a relationship with you. And I want to come with my clothes again. I always want to come with my clothes. A nice suit, a nice tie, whatever that means. And he says, no, this time I want you. What does that look like? I don't even know. Vashti, I'm split. I don't know who I am. I'm one person for the world. I'm another person inside. I'm one person for the planet. I'm another person on the inside. I'm one person for everybody else. I'm another person for me. And even for myself, I may be two people. So Vashti puts on the clothes of the emperor. He says, I want to see you. And every year Purim, it's a deeper invitation. Go deeper into you. But Vashti at her core is Klippot. So she dissipates. When you get to the truth, there's nothing there. That's what Klippot is. There's mamish nothing there. People who have invested their whole life in Klippot, and they meant well. Prestige and fame and power and social status, Torah, Gedula, whatever it is. It could, by the way, spirituality and religion can also be used in this way. It's just a way of inflating my poor ego that's looking for protection.
That's the problem.
Huh?
That
He'll become very, very toxic. I can use God for this too. But how do you know this? You know it that it's very hard for you to be vulnerable. It's very hard for you to be joyfully alive and present. Because there's always an anxiety. Vashti means there's going to be an anxiety because there's a split. And whenever there's a split in the soul, there's anxiety. It's like an alarm clock. Something is off. Just to say a word about tznius. Tznius means to cover. But what's the real purpose of it? The real purpose is actually to speak the truth, to uncover. Because after the Eitz Hadas, before the Eitz Hadas, Adam and Chava without clothes. The moment Klippot comes into the world, now you have to understand what it does that nurtures it, and what it does actually to pause and see the truth. When you live in a world that if somebody walks around without, why are we wearing clothes if Klippot has clothes? There's two types of clothes. It's like a banana peel. There's clothes that actually protect the person from themselves and from others, of seeing them simply as a piece of meat, whatever that means. Seeing that there's something deeper here. So these are clothes that are actually inviting me to go deeper, like a peel of a banana. And then there's clothes that are like blockages, like a sack. A lavush sack that just blocks. So you have to understand what type of cover it is. There's a cover in order to honor what is inside, not to block it, not to destroy it. Tznius by Jews is not like in some other cultures where we don't believe that people are allowed to be beautiful and have dignity. Chas v'shalom, on the contrary. It's actually to preserve the dignity and the beauty in the right places, in the right context, so that it's not abused and manipulated and exploited and actually undermines the dignity of the woman or of the man. In a world where there is Klippot, you need to be able to use protectors in a very productive and healthy way. If I just walk around vulnerable, naked, I don't mean physically, emotionally, psychologically, you could get hurt. We do all have protectors. There's etiquette. There's ways of talking. I don't walk around telling everybody every problem I have. In my classes, I do sometimes. But not every problem I have. A few. I have some more. It's not because everybody is dishonest, because it's about the key is, are you the owner of your klipa or does your klipa own you? That's the key difference. You have to have covers. Just like we go to sleep with blankets, but do I own it or does it own me? Am I aware of what's happening? You show up to certain relationships, the person may not be ready for more. That's fine. It's not about lying or manipulation. It's presence with my true self, but it's presence in this relationship with these circumstances. So now, we understand what it means that Achashverosh has two opposite meanings. Achashverosh says, Achar is V'reishis Shaloi, the beginning and the end is his. Achashverosh means their story was that the Jewish people were black. Which one is it? That's the Chiddush of Esther. You could look at life, and everybody's life has two different interpretations. And it's not about judging or arguing. It's really about a frequency of energy. I could look at life and say this is a time when the face of the Jewish people is blackened like the bottom of a pot. Those are the moments of stress or anxiety or crisis collectively that we have or individually that we have in our own lives. And that's Achashverosh. You can also look at the same reality and see Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh b'mi she'acharis v'reishis shaloi. I'm in the grip of the one that the beginning and the end is his. Which Achashverosh am I going to live with? It's both. It's both. Chazal say both. It's not one is right, the other one is crazy. You're not crazy. It's very normal. Vashti in her life is split. She lives in a split world because the inner truth is buried somewhere. Esther walks the world and says, there is concealment, and I'm going to choose to live in revelation and not in concealment. V'anoichi haster aster, if you'll see the third to the last source, Gemara in Chulun Kuf Lamed, Esther min ha-Torah minayin, v'anoichi haster aster. The source of Esther and Torah is the pasuk in Vayelech, I will hide. But who's going to hide? I will hide. But it says haster aster twice. Because when the hiddenness is hidden, then it's not Esther anymore. Then you have a problem. If I know that there's something hiding here, you're good. If the hiddenness is hidden, the Hester is behester. Ooh, that's the problem of Klippot. I may know I have a challenge. I am now in survival mode. I am now in coping mechanism mode. I just shut down. For the next 2 hours, don't talk to me because I'm shut down. You know what? You're pretty healthy. Good stuff. I'm now in a difficult space. I need to come back home. Okay. So let's find the mechanism to come back home. Maybe you need to breathe. Maybe you need to sleep. That's always a good thing. Maybe a salt bath. Maybe some exercise. Maybe a hike in Kakiyat Park. Maybe a brisk walk. Maybe a telephone conversation. Maybe daven, learn, whatever it is. You find the mechanism to bring yourself back home. I'm not home. But Esther knows about Hester. And because of that, it changes everything. And that's why what's the Megillah? Megillas Esther. What's Megillas Esther? Literally, to reveal that which is hidden. Megillas Esther. Legalot et Hester. Legalot et Hester. So now you'll understand the difference of Purim and Yom Kippur. You remember what we started with when you shut down in the beginning? Because you didn't know how this is going to help your marriage? I hope you figured it out by now. So let's go back to Yom Kippur and Purim. This is exactly the whole point. Yom Kippur will only be in a day that can't be Tameh. Because what's Yom Kippur? Doimin kemalachim. Yom Kippur, we're like angels for 24 hours. We don't eat, we don't drink, people don't bathe, we don't engage, and all the things that Yom Kippur we abstain from. It's a day we even dress in white. People pray all day. It's a day of spiritual transcendence. The Kohen Gadol goes into Kodesh HaKadoshim, and we go into our Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's the only day we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchusai loud because we're like the angels. So we're not hiding anything. So Yom Kippur is a day in which you're uplifted from the world. It's a day of sublimity. Does it mean Yom Kippur we don't have difficult moments? We may have. Some people have very, very traumatized Yom Kippurs. That's things we have to work through. But the energy of Yom Kippur is an energy of purity, of sublimity, of transcendence. Then comes Purim. Purim is precisely in days that are susceptible to Tumah. You don't make Purim on a day that can't become Tameh. Sunday, yeah. Monday, no. Tuesday, yeah. Wednesday, no. Shabbos, no. Friday, yeah. Why? What do we have against Purim? That's the whole Chiddush of Purim. What does Tumah mean? What does it mean to be pure? What does it mean to be impure? Va'atem hadveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem chayim kulchem hayom. Purity is dveikus. That's why death, which is the opposite of chayim, is the opposite of dveikus. Dveikus means alignment, connection, attachment. No shtayim. You're not split. When I'm split, I'm not aligned. There's a split. I'm broken. Alignment means there's oneness. Ein oid milvadai. You're in a place of alignment. Over there's always joy and confidence because you're a manifestation of oneness. Over there, I can always be present and vulnerable and experience the flow of love because that's what I am, the flow of love. That's Tara. What's Tumah? Tumah is there's a disconnect. That's what impurity is. Tumah will always attract itself to places that are potentially rich and holy. Like bees go to the honey. A real robber doesn't steal from a schnorrer. You go to the bank. You go where the money is. Yeah, you know they say about the thief that went into some Jewish bank in Israel, right? And he found $1 billion in pledges. Yishikoyach. That's not going to work. The Klippot goes where the Kedusha is. That's why those who do more spiritual work will always have more resistance at some point. The Gemara says, Kol hagadol mechaveiro yitzrei gadol. It's like you lift weights. The stronger you get, you lift heavier weights. They're going to give you a heavier weight to create more resistance, to tear the tissue. It's not a punishment. It's precisely that. When we reach a higher frequency of life, boom, we get tested in that space to work through that klipa too. People get discouraged. You don't have to get discouraged. It's part of the process of growth. So as a result of that, when is Purim? Only in days that are susceptible to Tumah. Because the whole idea of Purim is va'anoichi haster aster panei b'yom ha'hu. You could look at life and say it's black. It's like the bottom of a pot. The bottom of a pot is just, it's like you don't even want to eat it. It's like the leftover food, like the dregs. God forgot about me. Or you could look and say, Bimei achashveris sha'acharis v'reishis shaloi. If you were living in that story, it was a story at the surface, it seemed like Jews were completely random victims of two crazy people, Haman and Achashverosh. One worse than the other. That's what it looked at the surface. What was Esther's power? Esther's power was she did not lose herself, even for a moment. Why? She knew it's a concealment. It's really acharis v'reishis shaloi. You're in the world of God. You're in the grip of Hashem. Every moment of life and even every challenge of life, it's a challenge. And it's dark and it's black and it's difficult. Esther doesn't say there's no concealment. Purim is on a day that you could become tameh. It's susceptible to impurity. If there would be no darkness, you can't become impure. Angels don't become impure. In Holy of Holiness, there was no impurity. Purim is made precisely on a day when you could become not tameh. When you could become tameh. That's why it's higher than Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur Kippurim. Because it does something that even Purim can't accomplish. Even physically, Purim is a very different day. There's no high on Purim. Purim, you're eating and you're drinking and you're making a meal and sending shalach manas and giving matanas lavyonim. People are waiting for the inspiration of Purim to hit them. The whole power...
You have to be drunk to get them.
I'm not sure. The whole power... Depends what drunk means. Depends what drunk means. Ada lo yada, we spoke about miyodeya, going higher than seichel. The real idea of Purim is you have nowhere to run. Right here it's acharis v'reishis shaloi. So when people are waiting Purim something to happen, nothing happens. This is what the nothing that's happening, that is what's happening. That's why it says when Mashiach comes, the one holiday that won't be nullified is Purim. What's pshat? All the holidays will be here, but all the Yom Tovim represent an ascent to a higher reality and more inspiration. So now the question is, how much inspiration are you experiencing? When Mashiach comes, there's going to be so much inspiration that all the other holidays are going to be like lighting a candle in the afternoon. Purim, the Chiddush of Purim is not the inspiration. The Chiddush of Purim is that the Teva itself, the nature itself, the Hester itself, This moment itself that I'm in here is Acharis V'Reisha Shaloi. The beginning and the end is all His. It's a place of infinity that encompasses everything. That's why the first words of the Megillah is Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh hu Achashverosh hamelech mei haidu v'yad kush. What's haidu? The word haid in Hebrew means what? Haid? Glory. Haid v'hadar lefanav. Haid is light, right? V'nasata mei haidcha alav. Hashem told Moshe, take your light and put it on your Yeshua. What's the word kush? Black. So one is light and one is dark. Hamoilech mehaidu v'yad kush. From the greatest light to the greatest darkness. Acharis v'reisha shaloi. I'm not only a melech when there's no tumah, even when there is tumah. Even when there is a Esther. Vashti represents, and that's what she invests in. And that's why she had such a hard time. She hated Shabbos. She used to make Jewish girls work on Shabbos without clothes. Shabbos freaked her out because Shabbos is the time of Kedusha. Esther is the opposite. Vanoichi haster aster. She knows about the Esther. And therefore she pierces through it. And therefore she doesn't get nispol from it. In a person's life, it means that I could be in a state where it's dark and I feel that, and then I could bring myself back home and say, Acharis v'reishis shaloi. Right here, right now, in this situation. Right here, right now, in this situation. There's a larger truth that I may not understand, that I may not know, but I can hold on to. And it could give me a very, very profound sense of presence and vulnerability. And there's a lot of tears, but there's also tremendous joy. Mei haidu v'yad kush, because Acharis v'reisha shaloi. And that's why it says, Ish Yehudi haya b'shushan abira. So the Gemara says he wasn't from Shevet Yehuda, he was from Shevet Binyamin. So the Gemara says, because he was kaifer ba'avodah zara u'moide b'Torah. He denied avodah zara and agreed to Torah. What does it mean he denied avodah zara? This is Mordechai and Esther. It's not that he didn't bow down to avodah zara. That's for sure he didn't do. He denied the reality of avodah zara. That avodah zara really exists. That's what drove Haman crazy. Haman wasn't so perturbed that he didn't bow down to him. You know what drove him crazy? When Mordechai looked at Haman, Haman felt that Mordechai looked at him and said, you don't really exist. Hashem exists. You're a conduit. You're a channel. Some people are part of the play by being the heroes, and some people are part of the play by being the villains. You remember in camp when you did a production in school? Right? Which one were you, the hero or the villain? They're both part of the play, and at the end, everybody takes a bow together. The question in history is, do you have the schus to be the hero? Or Nebuch, are you the villain? Mordechai looks at Haman and says, you don't have power. Haman minat Torah, the Gemara says. Haman minat Torah minat. What's the source of Haman in Torah? What type of question is this? The answer is, there's no Haman without Torah. There's no Haman without Torah. Mordechai looks at Haman and doesn't think he's a reality. He knows he is. You're a big, fat cover-up. God wanted it to be a cover-up. It's a challenge. It's painful. But I'm going to bow down to this. I'm going to sell my soul. Haman went crazy from this. Somebody that denied the core of his reality, he went crazy. And that's why the worst thing for Klippot is when it suddenly has to surrender its very existence, it dies. If there's Kedusha under it, it starts living. When you surrender what's called an ego death, you let it go. And the real thing comes out. Now you can breathe. Finally. I was under, like you're living under a rock your whole life. You come up from under the rock, you could start breathing. But that's only if there's something there. Haman, why did he have to kill Mordechai? So he didn't bow down to him. Why did he have to kill every Jew? Because there was no pain for Haman like the pain of knowing that these people don't think he really exists. Imagine his whole life he invested in trying to build up his existence, and deep down Mordechai looks and says, he doesn't even exist. Hashem exists. If you exist as part of Hashem, of course you exist. Then you're eternal, then you're infinite. You don't have a better existence. And if not, you never existed, you're never gonna exist. You're a challenge that was created. That's what he looks at Haman as. Haman couldn't forgive him. So therefore, Purim is precisely on a day that's susceptible for Tumah. Because that's the whole chiddush of Esther, to reveal the truth of the concealment. That in a place where you could easily be disconnected, you choose connection, you choose oneness, you choose the relationship. Now let's bring it all together. So now let's come back. Sunday, Purim, not Yom Kippur, because it's Tumah. Monday Yom Kippur, not Purim, because there's no Tumah. Tuesday Purim, not Yom Kippur, because there's Tumah. Wednesday Yom Kippur, not Purim, because there's no Tumah. Friday is Purim, not Yom Kippur, because there is Tumah. Shabbos is Yom Kippur, not Purim, because there's no Tumah. The problem is Thursday. Thursday is the only day of the week that can be both Purim and Yom Kippur. Purim could be Thursday, Yom Kippur could be Thursday. So l'chayda, that undermines the whole class. So now you can go home. But, so here, listen to this. And here you see how precise and meticulous every word in Torah is. Yom Kippur is a holiday that was created when? Yom Kippur was, where does Yom Kippur come from? What's the source of Yom Kippur? So Yom Kippur is a biblical holiday that comes from Chumash. When was Purim created? Purim is a midrabanan. It's not biblical. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't exist in the time of Purim. It's not like the mitzvah of Shabbos or Kashrus or Sukkot or Pesach. Purim is a rabbinic institution in the times of Mordechai and Esther, after the miracle happened, which was already after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, the end of the Babylonian exile, the beginning of the period of the second Beis HaMikdash. That's when Purim is created, not by Moshe, not by Hashem. It's created by the sages and the rabbis, just like Hanukkah was created later. So now let's look at Thursday. Thursday, let's ask this question. Biblically, from a biblical Torah perspective, can there be impurity on Thursday? No. From a biblical perspective. So therefore Yom Kippur, which is a biblical holiday, is on a day when there's no Tumah. Because on Thursday, from a Torah perspective, there's no Tumah. But now let's ask another question. From a rabbinic perspective on Thursday, can there be Tumah? Yeah, the wing of a vulture and the ostrich egg. Purim is a rabbinic holiday. So from a rabbinic perspective, is there Tumah on Thursday? Yeah. From a biblical perspective, there's no Tumah on Thursday because nothing gets Tumah on Thursday. So Yom Kippur, which is a biblical holiday from the days of Moshe, is on a day when there's no Tumah, Thursday. But Purim is a rabbinic holiday from a rabbinic perspective. Is there Tumah on Thursday? Yeah, two things. The wing of an ostrich, or the wing of a vulture, what's called kanaf ha'azniya, from the word ois, and beitzas basayan, and the egg of an ostrich, which are strong birds, very strong, very powerful, and there could be Tumah. So Purim is on a day of Tumah. So Thursday is the only day that the two can come together. Because on this day, you have from one side, from one aspect of history, there's no Tumah. From another aspect, there is Tumah. So now, if so, we come to the idea and we understand the Gemara says, whenever it says Vayihi, wherever it says Vayihi, it's tsar, it's pain. V'haya is simcha. Vayihi is tsar, because Vayihi means it was, it came to pass. It's like passive. V'haya is it will be. When somebody says it came to pass, like, tsar. Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh, Vayihi is tsar. And it's interesting. If you say Achashverosh is Achar is V'reishis Shaloi, what's the tsar? What's the pain? If it's Achar is V'reishis Shaloi, why do we say Vayihi? But that's again the whole point of Esther. Because the tsar is that it's not revealed. That in a revealed way, you see Achashverosh. You have to learn in Medrash that it's Achar is V'reishis Shaloi. Rabbi Yitzchak once spoke to Hashem, and he said, I don't know what you want. If you would have put all the cravings and negativity of this world into books, and Gan Eden would be right in front of our eyes, Mela. But you did the opposite. Gan Eden you put into the Sfarim. All the problems of the world you put in front of our eyes. Come on. It's not fair. So what do you want? That's what the Baditcheva said. That's Vayihi Lashon Tsar. Since in a revealed way, it's Bimei Achashverosh. Achashverosh, who Achashverosh? The regular Achashverosh. You need to learn and think and meditate and work on yourself and find your inner soul. But at the surface is a Klippot that conceals. So that's why the Vayihi is Lashon Tsar. The Vayihi is Lashon Tsar because there's still the pain that it's not revealed in the manifested way. Because ultimately it's all in Teva. So really it's Achris V'reishis Shaloi. But it's work. It takes work. And there's a pain over there. Why is it not revealed? Why is it not manifested? The soul has bliss, but there's a pain. Why is it not manifested? Why is it not revealed? Why are there so many cover-ups? Why are there so many blockages? That's the Vayihi Lashon Tsar, even in the Acharis V'Reisha Shaloi. And that's why Purim is the quintessential holiday that gave the Jewish people the power in Golus to be able to penetrate and see the truth in the darkness, but still know that the Vayihi Lashon Tsar is the pain, that the infinite full love is not revealed in the most manifested way, which is the ultimate Geula. May we see it before Purim. Amen. Have a beautiful and a freiliche Purim.